early 2000s.
Yeah, but like, not that one. The girly version. We're back! And it is officially spooky season, my favorite of all the seasons. Before we get into the video, I just want to say thank you guys for 100 subscribers. That is probably the most YouTuber way I could have said that, but thank you for 100 subscribers! Currently, I'm at 111 subscribers, and I was just so excited to make an 100 subscriber special. Honestly, I did not expect this many people to tune in for Byler and random analysis videos, but if you're in this, so am I. So I will get back to the Ghosttundra video. I just want to say I hope everybody has a happy Halloween. Subscribe if you want, I upload anyway. And let's get back to the video. So today we're going to be talking about Ghosttundra, more specifically her aesthetic that she created last year. For those of you who don't know, Ghosttundra is the creator of the Lacey Games series, and it's just one of her many series that she does on her YouTube channel. Most of her series revolve around the early 2000s or 2000s-like vibes. To break down her aesthetic, we need to look back to 2000s era aesthetics, like dreamcore, backrooms, anything involving something that you may have seen before or that you just remember. So to get us started, let's get into dreamcore/weirdcore. Dreamcore is the aesthetic of looking back at the past with a dreamy kind of lens. And it's one of our main examples for romanticizing nostalgia, if you ignore the 80s craze. Dreamcore is a sort of aesthetic where you put eyes on things and stare at clouds and everything has sort of a fluffy filter over it. Sometimes there'll be text over it, and it's all sort of the same message of wanting to return to the past or feeling like the past is your only home. Sort of looking at the past as something that you admire and feel extreme comfort in but can't get back to, and that's really what Dreamcore is about. It's more focusing on the fact that you can't go back to the past, a time where you were most comfortable, compared to the present. Dreamcore was one of the first viral examples to take a past or a memory and try and make it into something ominous, and I think that's what really made it stood out. I remember various Dreamcore playlists that I still listen to occasionally while making this video, and overall it was a cool aesthetic. It's just sort of looking back into the past and acknowledging that you can't return there, but making it more ominous. You'll often find silhouettes, blacked out faces, floating eyeballs, clouds, and static to represent how different faded or ominous memories can be in the Dreamcore aesthetic. Dreamcore was around just before and for the boom of the Backrooms, so let's move on to that. Being one of my favorite nostalgia-based horrors, the Backrooms is definitely a vast universe to explore and talk about. I could talk for an hour and a half about the Backrooms, and that's another video, so let's try and make this summary quick. The Backrooms is a world based on liminal spaces, entities, and levels. While liminal spaces, being a space feeling like you've been there before, or that something is oddly nostalgic about whatever image you're looking at, the Backrooms twist on it is that the liminal spaces there were specifically created to look like they were designed for humans. The Backrooms itself is sort of an entity of its own, with walls that have been created to look like and welcome people there, but it's only there to feed its entities, and it's sort of an unstoppable being which shifts and is wildly unpredictable. The basic idea of the Backrooms starts at level 0, where you have yellow walls and buzzing lights in an area that we all feel like we've seen before. Meanwhile, you can only get there by no clipping or video glitching through a floor or a wall, and once you get there, you can't get back out. The main attraction of the Backrooms started as an idea of a collection of nostalgic places where it looks like there should be people but aren't, making it strangely comforting and a place where you would generally dream about being. But the Kane Pixels twist came along with a whole bunch of other lore and levels which I would totally check out in a different video. Basically, as far as nostalgia-based horrors go, the Backrooms is definitely at the top of the list. Which brings us back to Ghosttundra, who created her very own brand of 2000s and nostalgia-based horror. Most of the Lacey Games videos follow a basic formula. A customer or a person from the Lacey Games website, which is basically Girlsgogames, revisits the old website because of nostalgia or because of rumors that something's going on with the games. Either way, they end up recording it and showing that the games weren't as child-friendly as they remember. There's a simple prompt, like a dress-up game or a cooking game, and somehow it turns into an existential crisis filled with gore and tons of scary things that normally wouldn't be on a typical girly website. What I find unique about the Lacey Games series is that typical Girlsgogames and very girly 2000s content would mostly romanticize and glamorize how girliness is. Like growing up and having typical teen experiences, like going on dates, dressing up, cooking, all these things were seen as the epitome of girliness, and mostly when you were playing them as a child, it's just something to look up to. With any Girls Go game as an example, Love Nikki Dress Up, or even the old My Talking Angela morning routine videos, or really any morning routine video, the staple lifestyle that was advertised was perfect pink lip gloss, tons of accessories and clothes, the most glamorous lifestyle, and you have routines for every day and night. You have Saturday routine, Sunday routine, you have morning routines, you have night routines, you have a skincare plan, you have a makeup plan. Everything was just so hyper concentrated in all of these girly Girls Go Games type things. You got to have the Barbie closet full of hundreds of shoes and clothes and plenty of options to choose from, whether it be from games like Episode or simpler ones like The Sims. All while the same soundtrack loops in the background as you waste time on that game for hours. When you're a child playing games like that, you're looking at teenage and girlhood as something from the outside in. Yes, you are a girl, or maybe you're just someone browsing the website and playing the games, but you don't live that lifestyle yet. You just see it as something achievable. Every woman has thousands of shoes and clothes and the most glamorous makeup, at least in the games. But Lacey's games explore that same narrative from a perspective of when you've grown up, when you've already gone through teenage and girlhood, and all of these things seem a little bit less easy to attain now. Some girls ending up going on dates with creepy stalkers. You can't always achieve your dreams, even though everybody always tells you that you can. Sometimes you can't afford the most expensive clothes or the most glamorous makeup. And sometimes, even if you can afford the most glorious clothes and makeup, your home life isn't exactly the best, so having all that stuff doesn't necessarily make you feel better. Or maybe you're not a girly girl at all. Maybe you're a tom girl or someone who just isn't interested in makeup all that much. Either way, the Lacey's games speak exclusively to the girl experience. So, that's probably where I should mention something crucial. The Lacey games are not games. At least not real games. They do exist in a universe, and in that universe, there are people criticizing the games for how dark and gory they are. But in real life, you can't search it up and play them. If you search up LaceyGames.com, you won't get any results. Except for maybe some fan wikis. In real life, the Lacey games consist of mostly drawings and fantastic audio horror.
your story somehow happened to my life, but it never was real. But I had this dream that was so real. I dreamed that it was me and another that you killed 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's just horrifying. All of Ghosttundra's projects have a similar early 2000s feel to them. Her other videos usually have something to do around that era, but the way she portrays anti-romanticizing nostalgia is so well done in the 2000s ones. I think the best example is of her most recent episode of Immigrant Roads. Everything from the art style to the way the characters talk and act definitely gives off a spooky, very early 2000s vibe, and I just can't get over how much of a shock this episode was, especially if you've only been introduced to her through the Lacey games. In this episode, we learn about Elise and her boyfriend whose name I can't remember. We start off in 1996 with this being another 2000s era series, clearly, with Bento and Elise this time. We start off with Elise on a playground with her friends as they're making fun of Bento for having an accent and, I don't know, having girly hair. Elise ends up dumping her bully friends for Bento, and they start dating. It isn't clear for how long they start dating, but it's at least a couple years because it continues outside of her school days. And all the songs and soundtracks that played this episode were amazing. When I wasn't bopping my head along to the beat, I was singing. I'm just gonna add a spoiler warning here because I highly recommend you go watch this on your own. Like, I'm a sucker for love stories, and that's totally what I went into this with the expectation of, and the twists and turns were so, like, captivating. It's really something you should experience on your own, so I would recommend you watch it on your own and then come back to this video. But if you don't care about spoilers, or you've already seen it, let's move on to it. After a very romantic montage of Benzo and Elise's relationship, we see a scene where they happen to be doing a seance of some sort, and it kind of looks like a Ouija board kind of scene. Elise feels some spirits and welcomes them into her house, something you should probably never ever do. We learn that they're in a band together, and the montage continues, but with them going slightly downhill. While Elise seems to be doing perfectly fine, Bento seems to look more paranoid and restless the more the montage goes on. We cut to presumably a day later, and Bento starts hearing things that Elise can't. Hey. Hey. What's up, man?
I saw...
With her boyfriend experiencing extreme hallucinations, Elise tries to figure out what's going on with him, and he freaks out as another attack hits him, and he ends up stabbing her in her eye. Elise, being the one who welcomed the spirit into their house, tries to stay with her boyfriend and help rid him of this spirit disease thing he's got going on. Then the song from the beginning, which sounds oddly familiar, Elise tries and fails to figure out what's going on with Bento, and her relationship is slowly becoming more and more tormented as the guy that she started dating slowly disappears into this weird husk of a guy who's always anxious and screaming when he is possessed. They still do their band together, but after nights and days of trying to fix Bento and failing, Elise is more mentally and emotionally drained as ever, while Bento seems to be in a relatively normal headspace when he's not being possessed. He snaps on the way to the gig and ends up breaking down and telling him to pull over, where she breaks up with him because she can't help him and she's lost the guy that she originally fell in love with. He tells her he understands, and those are probably his last coherent words as she starts to talk about how afraid she is of him blaming her or being upset with her over this. But then he gets possessed and ends up pushing her down a hill, I believe. Another amazing song plays, and it's implied something violent happened right as she was pushed down. Bento has been fully possessed, and the last we see of him by the episode is him talking with the demonic cat that caused him to do most of these actions, as he just lays down and presumably lets it take him. And yes, if you can't tell by now, I do love Mitsuki. The main thing I like about Ghosttundra's brand of nostalgia and horror is it brings a whole new level of brutality to just the simple, cute Girlsgogames vibes that we all got from 2v10s type games. You can see a lot of romanticizing with any era really, but with the 2000s it's particularly evident with things like dreamcore and weirdcore and just those nostalgia TikToks you see like, oh, remember this? But the thing you seem to forget with romanticizing nostalgia is that it's nostalgia because you're in the future. You still had bad days in the 2010s, things still sucked every once in a while, and not every day was a spacey, blowing bubbles in the lawn while watching really old Nick Jr. cartoons type day. I love to see things like that, and especially with Ghosttundra because her brand specifically had elements of all the aesthetics. It had a little bit of weirdcore every now and then with long blocks of paragraphs and blacked out faces and static, but it also had a little bit of a vibe of liminal spaces when it came to games like Lacey's Pet Shop, and you got to see multiple different areas. But even with all this different inspiration, it never strays away from its main source, which is that it's Girlsgogames, but terrifying. It's different because it's adding realism to something that was never meant to be realistic. It's taking the romanticized, girly, early 2000s Girlsgogames, and it's showing it for what it is. A lie. Because who do you know that has rows and rows of shoes and clothes and glamour who isn't in their 40s? Overall, it's very interesting to think about, especially around Halloween season. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my Ghosttundra video, Spooktober video / 100 subscriber special. I know I promised a character AI video, but it is still on delay since I'm still waiting on a USB memory card so I can have enough storage to make the thing. As for me and my future videos, I definitely didn't expect to get this much attention over me ranting about two gay boys from the 80s for like an hour and a half, but it's definitely nice to know that you guys like my content, and I just like making analysis videos of stuff that I like in general. So, if you like analysis videos and gay people, or watching somebody talk about gay people for an unhealthy amount of time, go ahead and consider subscribing, and see you in the next one.